I'd like to take a few moments to recognize my colleagues who serve on the Alumni Council. The Council has several committees that work closely with the Office of Alumni Relations to actively reconnect alumni to Teachers College. I would like to especially recognize our Alumni Awards and Recognition Committee, led by Diana Newman and Mitchell Thompson, for their work that brings us all here today. The committee has the difficult task of reviewing nominations and selecting the award recipients we honor each year. This is a role that they take very, very seriously. And as you can see, they have done an exceptional job this year. We encourage you all to think about the extraordinary TC alumni you know who are making a difference in their professional fields. We hope you will submit a nomination in their name for consideration next year. We are now very honored to have President Furman, who is also here with us today at this ceremony. At this time, I would like to welcome her to the podium to say a few words.
Welcome back to TC and to our 6th annual Alumni Festival, Academic Festival. We want Academic Festival to showcase the important work and the creative, groundbreaking ideas of our faculty and students and recognize our trustees and donors. And of course, we want to make all TC a stage for our alumni whose accomplishments and leadership across so many fields make a positive difference around the world. Our theme for this year's festival, Where the Future Comes First, echoes the theme of our campaign. With the groundbreaking work of the people of TC and the support of the campaign, we're building on our historic legacy of firsts, our first 125 years, to create the future first that will shape this century. So right now, we're going to honor a small group of alumni who have especially distinguished themselves in their fields of endeavor. These men and women span a range of interests and strengths, and they're receiving a very prestigious honor, the Distinguished Alumni Award. In part, it's prestigious because they were chosen by a jury of their toughest and most discerning peers, other alumni. So we look forward to these presentations and the opportunity to honor some remarkable careers. And with that, I turn the floor back to Patrick, who will introduce our first presenter.
Thank you, President Furman. You will find a list of the presenters joining me in recognizing our distinguished alumni today. These members of the TC's faculty and alumni community will read from the citations that are being presented to each honoree. And now, I would like to welcome Andy Gordon, Professor of Movement Sciences and Movement Science Program Coordinator, up to the podium to present our first award.
Good afternoon. So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce James Gordon, or Jim. And I just want to point out that we're not related, although he was instrumental in me deciding to accept the offer to come to TC 19 years ago, so don't hold that against him. Okay. So, Jim, as the field of movement sciences has increasingly enabled patients with neurological disorders or damage to improve their limb function, you have led the way in exploring the relationship between brain and body, developing a theoretical basis for rehabilitation, and translating knowledge into practice. In applying the motor learning theories of your great TC mentor, Anne Gentile, you have transformed the profession into a source of genuine hope for millions of patients who previously faced lifetimes of dependence and limitation. As a doctoral student, you began a series of groundbreaking studies on neurological control of different aspects of movement, creating new understanding of how the brain regulates force and rhythm, both automatically and at lower levels of the nervous system, and through a more complex intervention in changing our unpredictable environments. Invited by neuropsychiatrist and Nobel laureate Eric Kandel, you co-authored chapters in Principles of Neuroscience, the most widely used neuroscience text. Following your stellar leadership of the new physical therapy program at New York Medical College, you moved to the University of Southern California, where since 2004, you have directed the nation's top-ranked program in schools of physical therapy. You and your students are now exploring robotics and advanced technologies that can improve hand and arm function in people who have suffered strokes. Dr. James Gordon, for your pioneering and comprehensive work as a researcher, clinician, thought leader, and mentor, we are proud to present you with the Teachers College Distinguished Alumni Award.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you to the Alumni Association especially, and to Teachers College. I should say Andy and I have had somewhat parallel careers, which means that we get to take credit for each other's publications. In 1980, my wife and I and 2 children made the long trek from the wilds of Brooklyn to Morningside Heights. We moved into the friendly but snug confines of Bancroft Hall, right across the street. I became a full-time doctoral student, and we became members of the Teachers College community in every sense of the word. The course of our lives was forever altered. I'm very proud to receive this award, and I share it with my beautiful wife, Provi, and our children. What we have accomplished as a family. My years at TC transformed me in many ways. I had extraordinary teachers and mentors in the motor learning program. Ann Gentile and Joe Higgins had a profound influence on me. In the larger TC academic community, Jonas Soltis and Jane Monroe were 2 among many memorable teachers. And within the even larger community of Columbia University, I had the privilege of working with Claude Guez and Eric Kandel. From an intellectual perspective, I learned 3 things at Teachers College. First, I learned that ideas are important and they can and should be studied deeply. And I learned how to think and how to analyze ideas. Second, I learned that ideas can have consequences in the real world. Indeed, the best ideas are those with the potential to transform the real world. Third, I learned that the real world has consequences in the world of ideas. New ideas, transformative ideas, most often come from practice in the real world. This is how I think of Teachers College. A borderland, an interface where the real world and the world of ideas can freely mix with each other. Most important, I discovered at Teachers College that I could have an impact on the real world beyond my one-to-one interaction with patients. That discovery changed my life. I can't tell you exactly how it happened. That is the quality of Teachers College that can only be described as magic. Today, 34 years after that trip from Brooklyn, my wife and I have returned here after an even longer trek from Los Angeles, California. It feels to me that we are returning home. I will always be deeply grateful for what I've learned here and for what I discovered about myself. Thank you.
Please welcome John Allegrante, Professor of Health Education and Associate Vice President for International Affairs.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I have the privilege and the great pleasure to present David Johnson for the Teachers College Distinguished Alumni Award. David Johnson, if education is the best hope for saving the world, your work has brought us closer to salvation. Building on the ideas of your Teachers College mentor, Morton Deutsch, you have challenged the myth of individual genius and achievement so deeply ingrained in American culture. You have demonstrated the impact of cooperation on achievement, productivity, higher reasoning, motivation, social development, self-esteem, and psychological health. Above all, you have championed the critical importance of cooperation in education and the improvement of practices within the educational systems. Your theory of social interdependence was not forged in a vacuum. You grew up in a time when children were part of the economic unit of the family, working alongside parents and grandparents. During the early 1960s, Martin Luther King and a committee of his contemporaries honored you for your work in New York City and conducting training for the Mississippi Freedom Summer. Ultimately, you became a leader in fashioning alternatives to the competitive and individualistic learning practices prevalent in American schools. You envisioned classrooms where students work together cooperatively to accomplish shared learning goals and where a student achieves his own goal if, and only if, other group members achieve theirs. Through the Cooperative Learning Center, which you created at the University of Minnesota with your brother Roger and your wife Linda, a network of districts now implement your model. Dr. Johnson, those who wonder why a place called Teachers College is home to work in conflict resolution and peace education should look you up. For your many groundbreaking contributions to psychology, education, and global well-being, we are proud, deeply proud, to present you with the Teachers College Distinguished Alumni Award.
Actually, that leaves me somewhat speechless. So I will go ahead and try to do the best I can. But in the early 1960s, I came to Teachers College. I was here 1962 to 1966. And it mainly was a marvelous stroke of luck for me. And I want to say I am the luckiest person you've ever met. And there are many reasons why I would say that. One is that growing up on a farm, mainly on a farm in Indiana, as I graduated from college, Ball State University, I was determined to live in New York. And I thought I would go to NYU, because then I could live in Greenwich Village while I lived in New York. But my senior year, I met a professor named Morris Ashe, who is here today. And it turned out to be one of the luckiest things that ever happened to me. Maury was a graduate from Teachers College. He convinced me that I should come to Columbia instead of NYU and work with Goodman Watson, who then was one of the premier social psychologists interested in social action. And I was coming out of the civil rights movement. So I had this naive vision that I would come to graduate school, find out how to resolve conflicts and change racial attitudes, go back to the South and the Midwest, other areas, and end racism. You know, I thought what we lack is a knowledge base. Once you get the knowledge base, it should be easy. So I came to Columbia to work with Goodwin. And he unexpectedly retired a year early, so I came, but he wasn't here. And on the surface, that sounds like bad luck, but it turned out to be one of the most fortuitous events of my life because he was replaced a year later with Morton Deutsch. And working with Morton Deutsch was absolutely transformative. He taught me about theorizing. He taught me how to do good research. And we had a variety of students, one of whom, Harvey Hornstein, became a lifesaver at times because in those days going to graduate school was a lot more difficult. And I had no money for food. And so some weeks I would go 2 or 3 days without food. And every once in a while Harvey would see me sort of weaving as I walked down the hallway. And he would invite me over to dinner, fix far too much for any of us to eat, and then insist that I take all the Dover's home. And as little as that sounds, it felt like a lifesaver, at the time. And then I want to put in a plug. Not only did I get this very fine training from Morton Deutsch, that really is priceless, but I was just mesmerized by the libraries at Columbia at that time. Columbia had some of the finest libraries in the world. You could find out anything about anything in these libraries and get all these incredible manuscripts. And it was a real shock when I left for the University of Minnesota and found out that their libraries had missing books, journal volumes that had been stolen, pages that had been cut out of books. I mean, it was a mess. And I kept thinking, why aren't they like Columbia? Why don't they pay attention? And then another thing I owe to Columbia, which is luck, is it qualified me to get a job at a place like the University of Minnesota, which is one of the top-notch universities in the world. And as a byproduct of going to Minneapolis, I met my wife of 41 years, who certainly is the luckiest, who certainly made me the luckiest person in the world. Talk about Freudian slips. This is not good. I will pay for that later. Then the theorizing and research methods that I learned here formed the basis of my work on my plan to change the world, which was first to teach every student in the United States 12 years of working together in cooperative teams, and 12 years of learning how to manage conflicts among ideas, where they would argue and disagree with each other in constructive ways, and 12 years of peer mediation and negotiations for resolving conflicts of interest. And I thought if we could just change schools in this way, we will have a different type of adult, walking around the streets and going into companies. And I thought, well, that's probably the first 15 years of my career, and then I'll have to decide what else that I'm going to do. And unfortunately, it hasn't turned out to be that easy. Well, Ian Miller, one of the great equestrian riders in Canada, I think has been in over 7 or 8 Olympics, part of their equestrian team, show jumper, once said to my daughter, luck is as good as skill, as long as the luck lasts. And I am someone who my luck has lasted my entire life so far. And first with meeting Maury Ash, then working with Morton Deutsch, having the availability of the facilities here at Teachers College, having fellow students like Harvey Hornstein to help guide me on the way and teach me how to do things. And then, of course, being able to go to another fine university, the University of Minnesota, and meeting Linda. And it is just one piece of good luck after the other through my whole career. Thank you very much.
Please welcome Lambros Komitas, the Gardner-Cowles Professor of Anthropology and Education.
Thank you very much. It is my great pleasure to introduce Deborah Kenny, the guiding light of the Harlem Village Academies. Deborah Kenny, as you have suggested, a revolution succeeds on the strength of an idea, followed by unglamorous hard work. The revolution you call Harlem Village Academies began with a game-changing idea. Rather than being teacher-proof, schools must support teachers and bring out their highest potential. As chronicled in your inspirational book, Born to Rise, a story of children and teachers reaching their highest potential, you have produced, through fierce determination, an astounding success, hailed by President Obama as an example for every school in the country. HVA's record speaks for itself. #1 in college enrollment among all New York City non-selective high schools. First among Harlem schools in 8th grade reading and math. 100% proficiency in math for 3 consecutive years. 100% passing rate for New York State's Regents examinations. Some skeptics have questioned whether HVA's success can be replicated. Your answer, which we heartily endorse, is to focus on finding great people to teach, establish a culture that helps them constantly learn and grow, and provide a school community of support and respect, where those with a passion for teaching enjoy the freedom to flourish. You call for schools to treat educators with the autonomy and accountability of entrepreneurs, and you argue that at the societal level, we must value our teachers as we value investment bankers and lawyers. Deborah Kenny, you have argued that education must nurture strong and skeptical minds, kind hearts, and an abiding interest in advancing the greater good. For leading Harlem Village academies to success on all 3 counts, we are proud to present you with Teachers College's Distinguished Alumni Award.
Thank you so much, Dr. Komitas, and I would like to thank President Furman and the entire Teachers College community, and congratulate my fellow honorees. I was pretty impressed. I was taking notes as they spoke. I'll share some of those ideas with our students later. I'm here with my parents, and I decided today that I'm going to dedicate this award to my parents. You know, my father taught me that you can do whatever you set your mind to, and he instilled in me an incredible work ethic and an idea that you should always care about other people. And sometimes it can be embarrassing because we go to restaurants and he starts talking to strangers, but he always takes an interest in other people and how he can help them. And my mother instilled in me intellectual curiosity. She's always up reading a book until 2 in the morning, and I passed on that love of reading to my own 3 children. And she also taught me what Teachers College stands for as well, which is the power of independent thinking. There was this quote in her office by Marilyn Monroe, something along the lines of, if 1,000 producers in Hollywood told you you had no talent, what would you think? And Marilyn Monroe said, all 1,000 would be wrong. And speaking of independent thinking, I would like to express my deep gratitude to Teachers College because this extraordinary institution instills in teachers a passion for raising children, not just teaching the basics, but teaching children that creativity, critical thinking, independence, doing something important with your life, that all of these things matter. And I treasured the years that I spent here. I have such warm feelings about this building, this space. I remember this cafeteria. And what this place stands for is essentially what all our children need and deserve, which is a world-class education. We're trying to do that in Harlem, and Teachers College is a beacon of hope for all children. So thank you so much. I appreciate this honor.
Please welcome Professor Zhao Hong Han, Programs Coordinator for TESOL and Applied Linguistics.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Teachers College. It's my distinct pleasure and privilege to introduce Kate Parry, a recipient of Teachers College's Distinguished Alumni Award. So, Kate, Benjamin Franklin wrote that the library afforded him the means of improvement by constant study. Today, as libraries here in the world's wealthiest nation cut back on services or simply close their doors, your work at Hunter College and in remote African villages demonstrates the vital nature of these institutions to the development of civil society and the human mind. In rural Uganda, you made the observation that if schooling is going to be effective, children need more to read than just what's offered in school. There, with the gift of a single carton of books, you co-founded the Kitengesa Community Library and later the Uganda Community Library Association. Yet, your words stand as an admonition to every nation in the world. You have since repeatedly explored the tensions between linguistic imperialism and the ground-level need for literacy in the dominant global language of intellectual and economic commerce. Your research has shown that Kitengesa Library has not only increased academic achievement, but also supported women's microfinance efforts and deaf education. Perhaps even more importantly, it has served as a haven for what you have termed secret reading, the simple personal exploration of ideas from sex education to economics, unmediated and unfettered by teachers, families, or society. Dr. Parry, your mentor, TC's great literacy scholar, Clifford Hill, said it best. You embody the very best of TC tradition. For your life's work in teaching, research, and innovative service to society, we proudly present you with Teachers College's Distinguished Alumni Award.
Thank you, Johong, and thank you, everyone. And now I'm not sure what I should be saying next. You see, I'm not used to being honored like this. So I'll just follow my students' example and repeat myself. Thank you. Thank you particularly, President Furman and the Teachers College Alumni Council, for giving me this wonderful award and honoring me so generously. Thank you, too, to all of you who have worked so hard to create this occasion and have taken such care to see that I understood my role in it. Thank you, Rosella Garcia, where is she, for writing numerous emails to keep me on the ball and for being so helpful on the telephone when I still didn't get it. Thank you, Peter Mook, for organizing our session this morning and chairing it so ably. It was one of the outstanding hours of my career. Thank you, my old friend Marion Boltby, who was the first to tell me of my having received this award and has been running around with me all today to make sure that I didn't get lost. And thank you all for being here and for making me feel as if today, at least, I have become a very important person. But most of all, I have to thank my friend and mentor, Clifford Hill, who nominated me for this award. Clifford actually has a lot to answer for. It is now more than 30 years since he winkled me out of a teaching post in an obscure corner of northern Nigeria and basically arranged for me to come to Teachers College. He taught me some of my most important courses, especially for my present work, the one on orality, literacy, and technology. He advised me as I worked on my dissertation, and he launched me on my academic career as we worked together on a monograph, and then an article, and then a book. I should say that Clifford wasn't the only wonderful teacher that I had here at Teachers College. Alice Deakins and Franklin Horowitz taught me at the same time. My head span for a full semester as I moved from Alice's syntax to Frank's semantics to Clifford's discourse analysis. And I used ideas from all three courses in my dissertation about the reading comprehension of students in Nigeria. Joanna Williams, too, taught me most of what I know about the psychology of reading. And George Bond's course on anthropology and education was both fascinating and memorable. Hervé Varenne escaped having me in his class, which was lucky for him because apparently I'm a very tiresome student. But I've learnt much from him in conversation since. And then I must acknowledge Sue Nanker Bruce, who likewise didn't teach me formally, but more important, she initiated me into the mysteries of the American immigration system. As you can tell, all these people at TC contributed to my being able to do the work that you have just heard described. I believe strongly, as I think we all do, that literacy, as I know it, is an inestimable benefit. But I learned here, and then saw for myself, that we have to consider literacy as a set of social practices rather than just an individual capability. Thus, my work has moved steadily towards building up social institutions that can support productive and liberating, imaginative and inspiring ways of using written texts for people who have had little access to books and who have too often experienced schooling as oppressive and alienating. It was Teachers College that set me up for this, and my friends from Teachers College, classmates as well as teachers, and here I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Effie Cochran, with whom I spent many an hour over there in Whittier Hall working on Clifford's assignments. All these have supported me as the work has developed. So I shall end by thanking the college itself for the education it gave me and for honoring me now for what that education has enabled me to do. Thank you.
Please welcome Celia Euler, Professor of Education, who will introduce our Early Career Award recipient.
It's my honor to be here today and introduce to you Eric Shyman, who is the recipient of the Early Career Award. Eric Shyman, in your wonderful book, Beyond Equality in the American Classroom, The Case for Inclusive Education, you quote the great scholar activist Paulo Freire's assertion that the radical, committed to human liberation, does not become the prisoner of a circle of certainty, nor consider himself the liberator of the oppressed, but instead commits himself within history to fight at their side. Your book and your invocation of Freire could not be timelier. Even as the movement toward inclusive education gathers force, past attempts to find silver bullets in American schooling have taught us the dangers of reducing complex issues to simplistic solutions. The brilliance of your book stems from several personal factors: your own experience working with people with disabilities, your refusal to simplify the challenges they face, your command of educational history, and your ability to connect today's controversies to those of the past. At Dowling College, where you teach about autism and other exceptionalities in the College of Education, you told a student reporter that your appreciation for such subtleties stems from your realization as a Teachers College doctoral student that you would never know enough, and that the only solution was to keep learning. Not coincidentally, that same reporter told his readers that, quote, if there is one professor you would like to meet, it would have to be Dr. Eric Shyman, adding, here is a professor earnestly striving to improve the field of education for students with disabilities by impacting the lives of those who will be working alongside them. Dr. Shyman, for your remarkably nuanced scholarship, for your work with people in need, and for the inspiration you provide to young people who seek to follow in your footsteps. We're proud to present you with Teachers College Early Career Award.
Such an honor from such a distinguished school, awards committee, and fellow honorees is impossible to put into words. To be able to distill all of the lessons I've learned from TC, as a result of TC, and directly from the unbelievably accomplished and indispensable faculty of TC would require volumes. However, if there was one thing only that I could mention from my TC lessons, it would be the importance, if not the absolute imperative, of maintaining the mission of education as one of social justice and nothing less. Education is for the people, all people, and by the people, all people. The many long days and nights I spent at TC have led to many places, almost all of them unimaginable for someone like me, and the chance I've had to share what I've learned here and contribute even just a bit is nothing short of a dream come true. I thank all who have helped me get here, especially my beautiful wife, Lori, my two beautiful boys, Lucas and Nathan, who though weren't born in the world yet, were absolutely born in my heart, and my wonderful mother, Wendy Brickman. I thank you all. I'll leave you with one thought. Education is for all, and social justice is for all. The two can never be separated, and there cannot be one without the other. There is nothing common about education. Social justice is the core. Thank you.
Let's have one more round of applause for all of our award recipients today.